Hello, hello. Welcome back, Turning In family. Welcome back to the pod. I hope everybody's doing well, making it through the holiday season, which actually, to be honest, is a great segue into what we're going to be talking about today. We did sort of a holiday survival guide episode. We did a Reddit versus IFS episode. And Amy being in private practice, obviously she's working with clients a lot this time of year. What we've realized is that there's a fair bit of kind of fear-based information or fear that people have or parts of people have about their exiles. And we wanted to kind of delve a little bit deeper into that and talk a bit more about what to do with that and maybe why that even is, why that comes up. So we'll get a bit into exiles today as the main point of conversation. This time of year, you guys, I can't even tell you how much stuff tends to come up for people. And so if that's the case for you, please know that we are here with you every step of the way. I know that it can be a lot. And even if you're having a great holiday season and things aren't coming up, sometimes that other shoe will drop and you'll have exiles come up and that energy will come about. So either way, I really hope that you enjoy the episode and we will go ahead and get right into it. Thanks, guys. Hello, Dr. Amy Crawford. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, yeah. Happy freaking December.
My gosh, yeah. Happy December. Whoa.
I know, I feel like the first episode we generally record each month, I'm like, holy shit, everybody, it's December. Oh my God, it's blah, blah, blah. But
and happy birthday, Megan Jones.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, yeah. I turned 32 on Monday, which is absolutely wild.
Yeah, dang.
Absolutely wild. Honored to have made it this far.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that. Okay, Dr. Amy Crawford, on today's episode of the Turning In podcast, which I think we're on maybe episode 30 already, which is also very wild considering.
Which is, yeah.
Yeah, isn't that wild? It's 30 or 31. I can't remember exactly, but.
It's wild because I have parts that don't like commitment. And so the fact that this has been going almost for a year, it's like, dang, look at that.
Here we are, man. I know. We're going to do a little bit of talk on exiles, which is fitting based on the last episode. So we did our first Reddit episode, as you know, and there was some themes in there talking about kind of doing work with exiles or tapping into exiles, whether it be in session or on your own. And then it sounds like you've been getting a fair bit of question in private practice or professionally that kind of tied in. So I'm intrigued to have more of a conversation about how we can kind of guide our exiles, you know, as it comes up. So talk a little bit about where this came from for you, and then we can go from there.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, spot on. A lot of this sort of got stirred up with the Reddit episode, and there's just been consistent themes, as you mentioned, within my private practice of clients a little unsure of what to do if or when their exiles show up while doing their own work, right? While doing their U-turn or doing a morning meditation or their little coffee talk check-in or whatever each individual does for their own IFS practice outside of session. And it got me thinking, I was like, right, we need to maybe give the goods on that a little bit more and a little bit more deeply than what we've done. Because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding that is super well intended, and some myths around exiles, the largest being like, oh my gosh, it's an exile, avoid it like the plague, I can't do it on my own, don't even just turn around and pretend it's not there. Right? Like, we're not supposed to touch exiles at all. Like, don't exile. So yeah, I think that's really the theme here is, oh my gosh, what do we do when an exile shows up? Do we ignore it?
Mhm.
Because I haven't gotten all my protector's permission. Or that's
Mm.
the theme. What do we do?
Well, and that is kind of what, I don't know. Yeah, I think there's mixed messages there a little bit too, as
Mhm.
well. And we've talked a little bit, and we haven't really delved into. We've obviously touched on exiles pretty frequently as we're,
Mhm.
an IFS
Yeah.
podcast, right? And we haven't really delved into exiles since our like foundational episode, but
Yeah.
I think some of the mixed messages going back to kind of the Reddit episode as well of like, well, I had, so there was a question, and I'm gonna butcher it a little bit, but their general context was like, I accessed an exile in therapy, and I've been in freeze response because I didn't get all of these protectors permission, or
Mhm.
like
Right. That
it
one.
was
Yeah.
something, yeah, it was something like we kind of talked about like, hey, that's bulldozing the system. So we
Mhm.
have that
Mhm.
where I feel like, I mean, that's a real thing where we don't want to necessarily bulldoze the system. But then there's also the reality of like, when you do get in touch with an exile, do you need to just turn around and block it off and not access it and be
Right.
like fearful almost
Yes.
of it?
Yeah. Damaging it or screwing it up or something. So yeah, that is what I want to talk about today. And the first thing I want to share around that is, and it's again consistent messaging, which is good, is that we internally have systems, parts that are constantly interfacing with each other. So this idea that our parts are like in these little vacuums or silos. We have our managers in one with a big glowing M on it. We have our firefighters in another with a big glowing F. And then we have our exiles in a wholly separate one with an E. That's not the case. All of them are constantly interacting. So that's the first and most important message. Even if you're not working with an exile, you're working with an exile, because by the very nature of the system and the complicated dynamic in which exists within it, there will always be exile energy somewhere. How strong? That's the question. But it will still be there. Even if you cannot consciously feel the exile vulnerable, sensitive energy, it is still there. The exiles are still listening. They are still eavesdropping. And I'm not saying that in a nasty, dirty little way, but
No,
they're like,
no.
they're little voyeurs. They're listening all the time. Right. And so even if we cannot actively sense them, they are still there. So I think that's really important to remember. Even when we're working with our protectors, the exiles are still there. It just depends on how strongly they're presenting. Okay. Looks like you're about to say something.
I wasn't, and I was, but I didn't want to interrupt your train of thought. So sorry, my
Well, yeah,
facial
go.
expression did it anyway.
Uh-huh.
But I think the point that you're making is really important. I just wanted to expand on what you just said of like, by nature of our managers and firefighters doing their jobs, that means they're protecting something, which is that
Right.
exile. So otherwise, and please correct me here where I'm
Yeah.
wrong, but I say this all the time, we are integrated beings. And so what you're saying of like, there's not this glowing M and glowing F and glowing E. If these exiles, managers, and firefighters didn't exist and didn't have the burdens that they carry and have the
Mm.
jobs that they needed to do and the roles that they need to play within our integrated full personality, they would just be a part. Like it
Yes.
wouldn't be this real protective system. And so
Right.
it's just to your point, I wanted to expand on, by nature of these parts having the roles that they have and having the burdens they have means that there is an exile there that they're protecting, whether you are
Yes.
conscious of it or not.
Yes. So exiles are all around us, whether we know it or not, right? If there's a protector, there's going to be an exile. Okay. Otherwise, they're just parts, as Megan suggested. Parts that we're born with. It's natural, it's normal. They're just not placed in extreme roles or carry extreme burdens. Okay? So that's the first thing to remember. So now that said, knowing that exiles are always around, one can assume that whether we have been given permission or not for the exile to sort of show itself and to work with it, it may sneak in, right? It may sneak in more strongly than just sort of that knowledge that it's present, even if we don't feel it. So then what in the world do we do then? Well, it depends, right? So what it depends on is if you're in session with someone who truly is trained in IFS and knows the model. If you've gotten permission from the protector or protectors to move to the exile, cool, then you do. And the exile becomes the target part. Now, that's not really what we're talking about here so much, though. Mm-mm. Our session's really aimed at talking about what on earth do we do when I'm sitting at home and I'm struck with this intense amount of grief and sorrow and like just wounded, vulnerable energy that's starting to perhaps flood my system. That feels like exile energy. What do we do? Do we run for the hills? Absolutely not. We turn to that part from a place of genuine self-led love, right? Just as you would if you saw a kiddo crying, dirty, unclothed on the curb on your drive to work. Unless you're an asshole and you just drive by, that would be a part, I guess. Probably most of us would slow down and go, oh my gosh, what's up? What do you need? Right? That is the same tenderness we would give any of our exiles that show up unbeknownst to us or at random, right? Now, that said, loving up on and or tucking away, which I'll get into next, our exiles is very different than jackhammering, moving to them without permission. Okay? I am not suggesting all of a sudden start doing the 6 Fs and doing this deep witnessing with the exile on your own. For some of us, we may be skilled and have the capacity to do that, pending what your experience is, right? Many of our listeners do not have that level of understanding of the model or the capacity to unblend enough to maybe do that in a way that could be healthy, effective, and I'm going to use the word safe to the system. However, all of our listeners do have the capacity to lean in from their heart place to at least acknowledge the fact that this little energy is there, right? And it's actually reperpetrating to the exiles when we don't. It is validating they're invisible, they're not worthy of being seen, heard, or understood. And that feels like shit. Feels like shit to us in our adult days. It feels like shit to our littles. And it just reminds them of all the burdens that they carry.
Yeah.
Right? You know, and a client, again, this has been an ongoing theme with a lot of my clients, but I think there is this myth out there, and this is the theme that I hear, is that a lot of clients either sort of have read books, listened to podcasts, or been directly told by other therapists they've worked with, don't go to the exile on your own. Think of the protectors being this like fortress, almost like with a electrified fence behind them that houses all the exiles, and whatever you do, don't breach that fence. Don't breach the fence uninvited, but if an exile is at the fence looking at you, you look back and you love them and you say, hey, I know you're there. I see you and I want to get to know you when the time is right. Until then, I'm extending wholehearted love and tenderness to you. And let's tuck you back in to keep you safe. until I get full permission to work with you. Right? And that's the tuck in. We can ask them, where would you like to go to feel safe until the time is right for me to really give you the attention that you deserve? And it might be in a cozy bed. They get to choose. They get to say, I want cozy flannel pajamas on with with a minky blanket and a stuffed teddy bear. Excellent.
Right.
Right? So, yeah, I just talked a lot.
No, I mean, it's our job here.
True. It'd be super weird if I didn't talk at all. Yeah, good.
Yeah,
good
I'll give you permission there.
Yeah.
Well, I want to touch on as well, and I hope this isn't true. And as you were speaking, I was like, I wonder if there's been some messaging even here where we've sort of talked about, because we bring up not bulldozing so much. I hope that we haven't integrated that unknowingly into our messaging at times of
sure.
of the exiles, because the emotional experience is so tender. I think that is a natural thing for people to stray away from at times, especially because of the protective system. And I want to just reiterate and make clear that what you're saying and what I'm hearing you say and what my experience is that the ultimate thing that you can do in the case of a jailbreak, of a backlash, of a getting in touch with an exile on your own in session too soon is that self-led acknowledgement. And so whether that acknowledgement is in a timely manner where you are doing some kind of unburdening with a professional, or you are acknowledging and giving crisis love, or maybe it's surprising and you're giving crisis love on your own after you're doing the U-turn, it's that acknowledgement of I see you, I hear you, let's proceed, or let's tuck you in, and so I can proceed at a time that is more appropriate, and so I can give you, I love what you said, the time that you deserve, because that's usually, I mean, again, I don't want to overgeneralize, and for exiles that I've worked with, and then in, being more delved into the IFS community, it seems like that is a big, huge theme for our exiles, is that they didn't get what they needed. They didn't get the time, the attention, the whatever. They didn't get their needs met.
Of unmet needs. Exactly.
Yeah, they didn't get their needs met. So being able to acknowledge them and say exactly what you're saying. I want you. I want you here.
Right.
I love you. I want you here. And right now, it's not appropriate. And so I am going to reparent you and let you know I will come back to you, ... when
you're not alone. The message
you're
they need to know is you're not alone. Right?
Oh, that just hit me.
Well, and
my little exiles heard that.
Yeah, I mean, because that's really what they need to know. And parts of me hate this truth that Dick Schwartz says, because parts of me are like, no, we got to get them out of there now. And how it's some parts have an urgent desperation to get all of those littles that have been alone for so long, out of their stat. But he says the exiles have been there for a really long time. They're okay. Is that their ideal setting? No, it's not. Of course not. And they're okay. There's not this huge rush or urgency or the sky is falling need to get them out of there. It's not their perfect scene or setting to be in. And yet it's familiar and they're okay. The message we have to give them is that they're not alone and there is hope, and we will get them out of there when everybody else gives permission. Right?
When in their due time. There's a part of me that I think identifies maybe with kind of what you were saying of that part of you that wants them to want to almost vigilante.
Totally. Be the crusader who throws them on my horse and gets them the heck out of there. Right?
Yeah.
But
I love that.
Self is oh yeah, that's right. They're okay. They've been there this whole time. They're
It's
okay.
they're okay. It's familiar territory. They're not in this like imminent danger. It's familiar
Mm-mm.
territory. They've been in the environment or feeling the feelings they've been feeling for, God, I'm 32 now, decades.
Decades. It may feel like imminent danger to other parts, to our
Sure,
protectors, even
sure.
if the danger isn't real at this moment. It may feel real to our protectors. So I don't want to minimize that.
Sure.
And they are okay.
Yeah.
And again, when our parts, like Joan of Arc part, who wants to thrust all the littles onto the back of said steed and hustle them out, like that's a part of me then hot wiring the healing process, which doesn't work. So then we're in the same
Mhm.
situation, maybe in more turbulent territory, actually. So the biggest message here is yes, when exile energy shows up on your own, turn to it, acknowledge it, let them know they're not alone, and you will get to them in due time.
Yeah. That's so, gosh, I love IFS because of how nuanced it is.
Mm-hmm.
And what you just said about the Joan of Arc, the vigilante warrior, it, when I'm doing parts work not from a self-led place, it inherently, like if I'm doing I don't know, if I'm doing part work from another part, or I think I'm doing part work from another
Mm.
part and not actually with self energy, there is just this inherent denial or lack of acceptance of other parts and their roles and et cetera, et cetera. And sometimes that can feel like this web on its own.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it brings me full circle to kind of where we always get about how important the unblending and the U-turn and like
Right.
taking the time to like just honor
Mm-hmm.
everyone's roles and what
Yeah.
they're, put in place for. And I don't know if that's really where you wanted to go, but that's kind of where my mind
Yeah.
came full circle to of. So I guess therein lies a little bit of a question though, because the exile experience, let's say, whether I don't know the details of kind of like this client experience. So I'm going to go back to the Reddit.
Yeah.
Our answer to that question was crisis love, crisis love, crisis love.
Mm-hmm.
And what we mean by that, again, for those that didn't listen to the episode that was sort of introduced, is the acknowledgement and the deep
Right.
honoring and the self-let, the compassion and the
I
confidence
see
and
you. I hear you. You're not alone. Even if,
you.
I mean, I was going to say, even if those are just the three messages. Oh my God. Could you imagine if we heard that on the regular? I
Oh my
see you.
God.
I hear you. You're not alone. From a place of, right,
True. Yeah.
authenticity. Right. Like,
Yeah, like that deep honor just keeps kind of coming up into my mind as we're
mm,
talking, like just really like full-hearted,
mm,
wholehearted honoring. Um, that experience of being like having exile energy bubble up and being blended with it can be so intense feeling. And I think that's
mm,
where some of that fear comes from with people, is because it's not like
yeah.
a fun
Yeah.
experience to feel
Right.
fully abandoned or fully
Right.
unheard,
Rejected.
unseen,
Not good enough.
rejected,
Yeah.
unloved, unlovable. And I
Helpless,
think,
invisible. Ugh.
oh my God, there's so many. We could just keep going. So, like, being blended with that is such a difficult emotional experience and feels so flooding. I think that's where the fear of the whole exile comes from, and what you're suggesting to start to unblend from that is slowing down,
Yep.
turning in. And is it just as simple as saying, I see you, I hear you, and you're not alone? Like, is it just that simple?
I think so. Yeah.
Ugh, amazing.
I mean, is there a deepening? Of course. And yes, it is that simple. Right. And also being with the protectors who are intimidated or scared. My dog is sneezing. Sorry. The
Bless you.
intimidators, bless you, um, doing the same with the protectors who are scared by the intensity of the exile's feelings. Right? Because if the exile's feeling that, and as you just said, it can feel really uncomfortable, it's not uncomfortable to self, it's uncomfortable to parts of us. Those are the very same parts who have been put into their roles to protect this little exile, right? So self can handle all of this. It's our parts that struggle with the intensity of it.
Ooh wee, that is a huge ooh wee.
Ooh wee.
I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, neither do I.
That is actually a really big differential, and I think that is vital to identify because
Yeah.
oh man, yeah, the discomfort in that experience is part driven.
Mm-hmm.
Self is accessed and can hold it and can have compassion and can
Yeah.
feel safe and fine and
Yep.
revel in a way
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
feel honored to have that exile come up, whereas
Mm-hmm.
parts are the ones that feel like they need to manage and like, ooh, this is too much and
Yeah.
yada yada yada. I think
Yep.
that's a massive point to make.
Yeah. Self can sit in the dark with the intensity, as Pema Chodron says, without flipping the lights on. Self can do that all day long. It's our parts
And
that
it's
struggle
not,
with it.
yeah, and it's not exhausting
Mm-mm.
from self.
Mm-mm.
It's not, yeah,
Because
it
self
is
is
what it
like this
is.
steadfast parent who has, like this full well to give. It doesn't dry out. It doesn't, yeah, it doesn't get exhausted. Self has the capacity to just be with. And that's the difference.
Yeah, the cup runneth over.
The cup runneth over.
And the
Yes.
cup of self runneth over.
Mm, yes, and doesn't dry. It's the eternal it's the eternal fountain of
Fountain of
compassion.
youth.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah, fountain of compassion and the 8 C's. Well, so when it comes to the crisis love then, to bring that
Mhm.
full circle, because that was the answer to that one Reddit post, or maybe even a couple, to be honest.
It's
The
always the answer. The U-turn
it
of being
seems
with,
like,
but yeah. Uh-huh.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It is always the answer, which is, again, the consistent and beautiful message and simplicity, even in a nuanced modality. But the crisis love coming from self is kind of the utmost importance, because otherwise the crisis love, or what may seem like crisis love coming from parts, is just further like dampening or trying to
Mm-hmm.
dampen the uh, exile energy or even the
Mm-hmm.
protector energy that's coming up, that's uncomfortable.
Because there's a difference in a part being like, it's okay, I see you, it's okay, it's
Yeah,
okay.
go away now, you can go
Right.
back home.
Like, right. Let go over there. You could just tuck away over there. That's different than that, like I said, that abundant capacity to just say, gosh, I really see you. I know. I know that
Yeah,
grief is really heavy. That feeling of invisibility sucks.
yeah.
You're not alone. And I promise there is help. It just may take a little bit of time. Right.
And what do you think about this, even because self is ever present, about reminding that little one, like, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm
You always have
here and I
access to me. Yeah. I'm here. Yeah.
and you don't have to beg for my attention. You don't
Uh-huh.
have to, I'm here and I'm listening, and it's time for me to kind of focus on these other parts,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll be back. I'll be back,
Right.
and I'm
Yep.
excited to be back. It's just we do have to do things in due time because I
Yeah.
care,
Yeah.
you know.
Exactly. Yep. I mean,
So there is
that
always
is truth.
access.
And we can always ask any of our parts, especially our exiles, is there another way you could get my attention instead
Hmm.
of coming in quite so strong? And this isn't to censor you or say how you're doing it's not okay, but that will give me the best chance of actually knowing you're there and to be able to be with you, so that other parts aren't swinging in hot, right? So like,
Yeah.
give a tug on my shirt, tap on my low back, whatever. Like, let me know, and I can remind you you're not alone.
I think that is I feel like that is really important, and can, for someone who maybe doesn't, well, actually, even for me sometimes, but especially for somebody who like doesn't really understand IFS, of like, I think that's where it can start to feel like convoluted and like this like DID territory, where
Yeah.
it's like, can you let me know specifically? Yeah, tap on the shoulder, because I think
Mhm.
people think of it literally,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
of like, I'm then gonna have this like tapping on
Mhm.
my shoulder,
Mhm.
and maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm totally off, and that's just not, I don't get things in quite the same somatic, like
Mhm.
physiological way in that way,
Oh
but
yeah. Oh yes, you do. You get your heart
I
racing. You get stomach
get the
stuff. Guess what?
tickle
All
in
that
the
is.
throat.
Yeah. Right. Like that's what we forget
Yeah,
is they
yeah,
show up in our body. We just may not have negotiated an agreement with them on how to show up. And is there a way
that
to do it
is true.
differently?
No, that is, yeah. That's why I always say correct me where I'm wrong, because yeah, that is very true. I get the little
Right.
tickle in my throat. I get the heart rate is a big one. That
Mhm.
thumping in the chest for me is a big one. So you're not wrong.
Or it's
Never
like
mind.
maybe using the same tactics they've used, but just a little less.
Yeah,
Right. Like,
more subtly.
you know.
Or yeah, I mean, even the back pain, like you said, like tapping on my lower back.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, that's actually totally true. Never mind.
I know. I know. I know. I'm just kidding. You're
Never
right.
mind.
I know.
You're right. The end. Never mind. Just totally corrected. Totally
And
corrected. But no,
one thing I want to say too is, I mean, this is relevant no matter the time of year, and especially around the holidays. We did a holiday episode a few back, and this is real important right now as we all embark upon the holidays, and even, we're winter solstice and a darkening of days until, we emerge with more light on the 23rd. I think it's the 23rd this year. Maybe the 21st actually. Anyhow, this is important work,
mm,
right? Like if you're getting a pit in your stomach because you have to go to a holiday party or the families, pay attention. Probably some exile there that could just use a little bit of your love and your attention and acknowledgement,
yeah.
right?
Well, and I think you just brought up a really good point, or something that I at least identify with, about the days being shorter and it being dark a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the time, at least where we're at. That does have an effect on me, and I think us physiologically on some,
Mm-hmm.
on some level, and like on my parts, where it's dark when I'm waking up, it's dark when I'm, at 5 p.m. when I'm trying to go to the gym,
Yeah.
and there is kind of like this different sort of mood and atmosphere that can then affect my mood and
Mm-hmm.
atmosphere
For
outside
sure.
of like the gatherings and stuff, like just
Mm-hmm.
on the day to day. So I think that's a fair point to bring up as well, of how this time of year can really kind of bubble up a little
Mm-hmm.
bit of, that it's cold, and, it's cold and it's
Right.
dark, and, sometimes it can bring up the loneliness factor with just that stuff, let alone all of
Yeah.
the family stuff or friend stuff or gatherings or expectations or
Uh-huh.
blah, de blah.
Yeah.
So it's in good due time. Um, do you feel like, based on kind of what was brought up with the client paired with the Reddit stuff, that we discussed sort of what was needed to just
Yeah, I didn't
remind?
have a huge agenda. I mean, you and I don't generally have huge agendas, which is cool for us because we like lists. Um, I'm sorry, parts of us, our managers
Parts of
really
us.
like lists. Self of Megan and I are very spontaneous. So yeah, my whole intention of this was just to kind of get a shorty out there to kind of clarify a little bit, and
Mhm.
also what to do in the face of exile energy because it's going to be there, and what not to do, which is turn away.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
So really, yeah, without an or agendaless agenda was, let's kind of review
Yeah.
what exile stuff and exile topics that have come up, and remind everybody they're there. no
Yep,
matter,
always.
no matter if you're conscious or having the like flooded emotional experience of them or not. And when they do come up and feel flooding, the best thing that you can do is acknowledge them and let them know that it's okay that they're there, and that they're there, and give them that like wholehearted crisis love.
You're not alone. You have access to me. I see you. And by see, I know some people don't visually see them, but see in that sort of, what's the word I'm looking for?
It's almost like a spiritual, like altruistic, like I see you.
Right.
I guess the people that aren't going to get that just aren't going to get it. But the people that are.
Well, and we can use I feel you, like I'm, whatever languaging. But
yeah, I'm here with you. So, okay. Well, thank you for bringing that up, because I definitely, it was just very relevant. You brought it up, when we were kind of chit-chatting and debriefing about some stuff, and it felt really relevant to that Reddit episode again. And as I'm continuing to, have my mind's eye on some of this stuff, it is really relevant right now. So, I want to end today. We need to add a couple of songs to our Spotify playlist. And so I'm really intrigued whether it's a holiday thing or a holiday song, or kind of what your system's been enjoying recently. Yeah.
Okay, real fast before we do that, can I think for a second?
No.
Yeah. I know. Well, I'm going to think while I talk about something else.
Okay,
I also want to give our listeners an invitation to be thinking of topics that they would love for us to do workshops on starting next year.
Yes.
I am creating more space in my calendar to offer a monthly workshop starting either end of January or in February. Usually they're around 90 minutes, but IFS driven, of course. So just I want to put a plug out there for that. And if there's like areas of interest, obviously we're open to hearing some of that. Okay, go ahead. Yeah,
I was like, wait, I want to expand on that really quick. So Amy and I have gone on a few different ventures in our journey together. One of those used to be kind of running, not kind of, it was
I was going to say kind of. I was like, oh my God, there's nothing kind of about it. There's nothing
running,
sort of.
Really intensive retreat experiences over, a 4-day period where people would come and, they'd fly across state lines and come and live in this mansion and do this therapy and do IFS and all of that stuff. So that was a lot. That experience was a lot. And it was really beautiful.
Go camping in Boise. So there were a few different
experiences. And what we learned from that, we stopped doing that because of the unforeseen global experience that shut the world down a few years ago. And what we've learned from that is a few things, which is that we can not replicate this experience in these workshops that we're looking to do this year, but that we can very, very effectively get people together for a common purpose of learning and growth, and have like a really beautiful experience. So as Amy's thinking of topics, we do want that to be, we have structured curriculum and things, but we do have interest in knowing what you guys may struggle with or want specific workshops for. So that's where that call to action is kind of coming from, of what is relevant to you guys. And then Amy's got amazing curriculum that can be built off of that. And anyways, so just wanted to expand there and give a little bit of context to where it's like, we've done this before. It's not really a totally new venture. We've done this before. We know how to make it, professional and structured and fruitful. So that's my monologue.
So now this is where I'm going with this. It may surprise some of you all. I think I'm misunderstood. So I like to confuse people and make them go, what? So I actually really like sports. Some of you know this from other droppings in our pod. And the sport it's knee deep in NFL season right now. Yes, I know NFL, blah, blah, blah. We can get into all the polarizations around that whole organization. That said, I'm an Eagles fan. And I'm in love with Jason Kelce. Not in that type of love, but I have a very deep, tender place for Jason Kelce, their center. And so this is my shout out to Jason Kelce. The two songs that I want to add are one of his favorite songs, which is The Cape by Guy Clark. Super, super sweet, amazing song about, yeah, just listen, you'll see. And then my holiday offering is him singing Dominic the Donkey. Megan's looking at me like I'm a super freak. I'm letting my parts know they don't need to be judged by her or anyone else. So yeah, Dominic the Donkey and The Cape by Guy Clark.
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
Amazing and unexpected, right?
Yeah, I think it was less judgment than like, oh, like a little bit of, first of all, I didn't know that you were an Eagles fan.
Yeah.
And second
fly,
of all,
Eagles fly on the road to victory. Okay, go ahead.
I don't know how anymore. I don't know how to follow all of this.
So you were justifying that your facial wasn't actually judgment, it was shock.
Yeah. Yeah, it was more like, oh, I'm learning new things about my best friend. And I love that. It's more, yeah, it's less judgment than like, oh shit, all right, sick. Get after it, girl. Go girly pop, get after that. Okay, well, we will add those to our playlist. I'm having actually a little bit of a difficult time. I'm very connected to music. We both are, hence the whole Spotify thing on its own. And I've been struggling a little bit. I've been a little bored with my music and playlist recently.
That's a sad place to be.
I know. I need to like sit down and make some new, like my gym playlist. I make a new gym playlist every like 6 weeks or so. And it's about that time because it like jazzes me up to go to the gym, to go listen and like jam out and dance in between sets. But right now, on the way to work, I've been listening yet again to a lot of Morgan Wallen. So I've been doing Morgan Wallen, One Thing at a Time album, Cowgirls, Long Live Cowgirls. And Everything I Love. So really twangy, yeehaw, just
wow.
I've been loving it. This year has been like my country bumpkin freaking era, and I have loved it. And it's actually brought me into a lot of self-energy in a lot of ways because it's so fun. Like, at least that's been my experience.
This is an evolution for you. Like, when we started this relationship, that wasn't.
It was a lot of like sad acoustic music. No, yeah. And I love my little sad acoustic playlists or like, I mean, I've always loved bluegrass, but I will tell you my like pop country, I am a pop country girly right now. Dang. So anyways.
You should also listen to Andre 3000's newest album.
Oh,
it's actually,
okay.
It's interesting and good.
That was also unexpected. That was very unexpected as a recommendation. So frickin' A, Amy, you're just coming in hot with the surprises. So, okay. Well, thank you. We really took quite the turn there, talking from exiles and like deep abandonment and rejection into different peppy songs, but I'm about that, and that is how we can go and be examples of how dynamic we are as humans. So everyone, happy holidays, whatever you are celebrating, experiencing. We hope that you are able to internally and externally go about this experience with wholehearted love and joy and excitement and honor, for all of the parts that may exist and come up and bubble up and grab your attention. We're really grateful for all of the support this year and super excited for kind of a few changes that we're going to make in 2024 as far as topics and structure, and things like that. So thank you, as always, for tuning in to the Turning In podcast. Thank you, Dr. Amy Crawford, for your time, and we will see you next time. Love ya.